Hey everybody. So I was scrolling through YouTube and I came across a pastor who has uh, who has quite a following. He's quite popular because he takes opinions. He voices his opinion on famous personalities or well-known personalities in culture. Uh, I of course have a problem with this because a preacher should be known for preaching the gospel, which is announcing Jesus Christ. Okay, but a lot of preachers they are subject preachers. They preach on their favorite subjects, politics. They preach on culture. They preach on pop, for or against. Okay, so this particular pastor, he's in a very traditional denominational church, and he was talking about Kirk Franklin, and he was speaking negatively about Kirk and about his appearance on Club Shay Shay. So if you don't know what Club Shay Shay is, that is the podcast, which is broadcast by Shannon Sharp, former NFL football player, former commentator, sports commentator, and now he's a podcast host. Kirk Franklin was on this particular show. So the pastor was going on and on about how wrong Kirk was, and he was lambasting Kirk because of the opinions. And then, of course, he took offense with Kirk being on Club Shay Shay because he says that Shannon Sharp is not a Christian. I don't know how he knows that, but he says Shannon is not a Christian, and that's not a place for Kirk Franklin to be on. So I went to Club Shay Shay and I listened to at least half of the interview of Shannon Sharp interviewing Kirk Franklin. And I have to say that although I don't always agree with Kirk Franklin's positions, some of his public actions, I don't agree with it. But because he is a brother, I believe he's a believer of Jesus Christ, and because he is a brother in the family of God and a fellow believer in the body of Christ, I will not criticize him. Yeah, even when I have taken issues with some of the things that he has done. So I want to talk today about how Kirk Franklin has really become an opponent to the traditions of the denominational traditional church. I do believe that he is one of the voices that has and won through music, who stands as a revolutionary. Uh, the thing that I love about Kirk is he is a member of Generation X. He was born January 26, 1970. So he is 3 years younger than I'm Generation X. And the sound that he released in the church has both captivated and challenged the traditional church. Kirk's impact on gospel music scene has been nothing short of transformative. And through his unique blend of gospel, R&B, and hip hop, Kurt has introduced a fresh and contemporary sound that resonates with a younger audience. But he has not been without controversy and pushback from the more conservative elements of the traditional church. And I find it interesting that it's been 30 years since Kirk Franklin arose on the gospel scene. And so after 30 years, much of his music may be considered traditional among Generation X believers, but yet he continues to stir traditional believers. He continues to stir up traditional believers. So it was in 1993, which is actually the year that I started pastoring my first church in the state of West Virginia, where Kirk Franklin burst onto the gospel music scene with his debut album, Kirk Franklin and the Family. This album, of course, was a groundbreaking success because he blended traditional gospel with contemporary R&B and hip hop. Franklin's energy and his passion, coupled with the beats of his music, struck a chord with my generation. Okay, in 1993, I was 26 years old. Generation X was just coming into adulthood and into maturity. And many of us of Generation X had become disillusioned with the traditional music. And so Kirk Franklin comes with this new sound, and it speaks to this generation of Xers who were born in the mid 60s to the mid to late 70s. And so while Kirk's innovative approach garnered a lot of acclaim, it also sparked controversy within the more conservative circles of the traditional church. So in addition to his musical elements, Franklin's lyrics were another source of contention. And then, of course, in most of his music, Kirk addressed real life struggles. Most of the traditional music speaks of heaven, the afterlife. It talks about the struggles of life that takes over the believer, and it never leaves the believer with victory. But Kirk began to address poverty and addiction. Some of his songs begin to address the dysfunction of broken families. His music spoke directly to the struggles of Generation X. And so this created criticism from the traditional denominational church. And many accused Kirk Franklin of being too raw for gospel music. So Kirk Franklin's influence extended beyond music itself, and it actually, his music 30, 20 years ago, it triggered a shift in the way that worship is perceived. And so his music actually brought freedom to the church. It began to liberate the church from traditional hymns and songs of formality and seriousness. He really delivered the church from being dominated by the old traditional type music. And so it's amazing to me that 30 years later, Kirk Franklin continues to face criticism and skepticism because, again, this reveals that most of the church is still out of date. He has been accused of merging Christian values with worldly values, and his journey. And again, this is something that I love about Kirk Franklin is his journey as a Generation Xer, as a Gen Xer, who has reshaped the landscape of gospel music is a testimony to the power of innovation and the ability of music to bridge generational gaps. While his sound continues to offend, while his actions, his words continue to offend many in the traditional denominational church, Kirk Franklin, continues to open doors for a new generation. Okay, because my generation is getting older now, so now we must make way for Generation Z and the generation behind Generation Z. But he's bringing a new era, a new generation of believers, and he's resonating and he's showing us how to resonate with a more diverse audience. So I believe that when history is written, Kirk Franklin's legacy will not just be in the groundbreaking music that he has been creating for 30 years, but in the cultural and spiritual impact that continues to reverberate throughout the traditional church and throughout the hearts of believers today. Please leave your comments if you agree or disagree with my assessment on Kirk Franklin and on his impact and how he has challenged the traditional church. Leave a comment. Let me know what your feelings are, what you think, and then subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share this video. All right, God bless you. We'll see you real soon.